Well, hello, my beautiful kindred spirits. I hope that every one of you are doing great today. I have a wonderful trip down memory lane that I want to take you on this evening with this Victoria magazine from October 1989. So, in October of 1989, I was a junior in high school. I was 16 years old, and I couldn't afford a subscription to Victoria magazine, but our local library had them, and so I would go every month and sit and read the Victoria magazine that they had at the Sevier County Library, and that is when I first fell in love with this publication. And since then, I've been collecting it over the years, and I think that you're going to love looking at this with me. First of all, we have a Lancome ad, and looking at this brings back so many memories. I remember Lancome perfumes and lipsticks and cosmetics and that little rose on their lipsticks. And I remember this hairstyle being so popular too, and wishing that I could wear it. I have very big ears that stick out, so I never did have short hairstyles like that. It just didn't suit me, but I thought this lady was very pretty with hers. Oh, this is an advertisement for Wamsuda. And Wamsuda is a company that made sheets and linens, and it says Springs, and I know that there was a factory down in South Carolina that they had looms, and they would make these beautiful textiles on before they moved everything to China. These were beautiful sheets. This advertisement for Lance. I'm not sure if Lance dresses still exist or not. Lance of Salzburg. They also made nightgowns, and I've seen them advertised before in the Vermont Country Store magazines, but I haven't received one in a while, so I need to look back at it again and see if they have any. If you know, let me know in the comments. And this Chloe perfume, my mother-in-law wore this, and so I don't even know if they still make it, but I remember her smelling so good. Claire Burke. I'm not sure if these people are still around, but they were a manufacturer of potpourri and fragrance oils for your home. And they had some of the most delightful scents. This one is, the advertisement says a room can consist of 4 walls and furniture, or it can be filled with a distinctive home fragrance like Provence's, a natural blend of the finest vanilla oil touched with herbs and spices. It makes a house a home. Claire Burke. And that says like Provence. I don't know where I got the is. Maybe I need to put my glasses on. I love these advertisements for Armstrong flooring. That is beautiful. That whole kitchen is beautiful. And I know it looks old to some of you, but to me, being able to have a kitchen like that would be so wonderful. And I have a beautiful kitchen now, but just imagining a kitchen like this when I was a 16-year-old girl, and thinking of a home that I would later have, and thinking I could have a home like this was just so fun to dream about. Just such a pretty, pretty place. This is an advertisement for Harden Furniture. This living room reminds me of the living room in Christmas Vacation. Where Cousin Eddie and Clark were drinking eggnog. Do you remember that part? Doesn't it look like that house? It's beautiful. These are some letters. It's a letters to the editor section, but it was called Dear Friends. And people were always sending such lovely, lovely little notes about situations in their homes or their lives that Victoria magazine was attributed to. And I always loved reading these. Advertisement for, is that pronounced Yves Saint Laurent? I remember that brand. This is from Warner. And they are a company that made wall coverings, fabrics, and pretty borders. Look at that cozy bedroom. Oh goodness. I have a story to tell about this company. It says the Victorian Papers, but they actually turned into the Victorian Trading Company. I believe they were in business for over 30 years, maybe even 40 years. And I absolutely adored receiving their magazine. They had some of the most beautiful items for sale, and I have purchased so many of them over the years. I have some personalized stationery. It's called the script on it is Spencerian. And so they wrote my name. I ordered it from the Victorian Papers. So they wrote my name in Spencerian script and sent it to me on this beautiful heavyweight linen cream-colored paper. I still have some of it, and I've used it over the years. I think they sent me 200 or 300 pieces, and it was one of my favorite things in the world to write a letter, a handwritten letter on that Spencerian styled stationery. But it came from Victorian Papers, which later turned into the Victorian Trading Company. My daughter told me that earlier this year they closed their doors, and it made me so sad because they were a wonderful, wonderful company. But I guess you can't go on forever, especially if you don't have people who are willing to carry on the tradition and run it in the same way that you want your business run. So I guess all good things must come to an end. But the Art of Martex, look at that bed. There's another couple of images. I think it's so nice how they advertise for linens so much in this magazine. And look at this beautiful Made in the USA. I remember, I believe I've talked about this on previous videos, that I've been purchasing my linens from eBay because I buy what is called new old stock, which means the sets of linens that I purchase were made on United States looms back 30 or 40 years ago, maybe even 50, depending on who I buy it from. And they're brand new. They're still in their original packaging, but they were never sold. So they could have been in a warehouse or in even someone's home that they never opened up. And people on eBay will sell them. Well, I buy them because they will last forever. I have sheets. I have a set of sheets that I bought in 1987. And the reason why I know this is because it was my very first job. And I went to Walmart with my first paycheck and I bought myself a new set of sheets and a bedspread. And I was so proud of them. I still have them and the elastic still works. They are faded, but not a lot. But I don't have any sheets that are new that are older than 10 years old because they just don't last anymore. So anyway, there's a tip for you. New old stock. If you want to buy a really good set of USA cotton grown loom made sheets that won't break the bank, because I have tried to buy some brand new sheets that are made in the USA and they're $200 and $300, but you can get them for about $50 on eBay. So try that out. Look at this beautiful tapestries. And look at that sweet little baby. He's all grown up now. Favorite things, a shop of riches. Artist Lillian August has created a jewel box of a shop brimming with old-fashioned wares. I love anything that's feminine and romantic, says Lillian August, whose sentiments are evidenced in her Westport, Connecticut shop. One of a duo that bears her name. If Lillian is not to be found among its gems, then she is sure to be painting upstairs in her studio. Top left, where she designs fabrics such as the ones above and richly patterned wallpapers like those that cover the hat boxes at left. Wow. I wonder if her business is still around. Look at these Hummel figurines. So sweet. Do people still buy these? I wonder. Oh, wow. Look at her dress. Look at that little tapestry off the shoulder. Isn't that beautiful? And her long gloves. Just lovely. Merle Norman Cosmetics. I know Merle Norman is still around. I had a friend, well, she wasn't my friend, she was my sister-in-law's friend who worked for Merle Norman, and she, no offense to anyone who likes to wear a lot of makeup, but I think it looks beautiful on other ladies. I can't wear a whole lot because I look like a streetwalker when I wear too much makeup. But anyway, my sister-in-law's friend was so excited when I told her I was getting married, and she said, "Oh, let me do your makeup for your wedding. I do a great job. I can't wait." But my husband had already, my fiance at the time had already mentioned that he thought she wore too much makeup and you couldn't really tell what she looked like because she had so much makeup on. And when I thought about her doing my makeup for my wedding day, I politely declined because, I mean, while it was a sweet gesture, I did not want to look like someone else on the day I got married and in all of my wedding pictures. So we declined, but I have heard they have good products. Oh, I want to show you this. Look at that wide belt. I was at Dillard's 2 weeks ago, and I've noticed that wide belts, shoulder pads, and bows, big bows, have come back into fashion. And I was telling my daughter that it looks like somebody dropped 1989 in the middle of the stores because all of that is coming back. It's a beautiful little dress. This dress reminds me of a pattern by Martha Pullen. She had a sewing show called Martha's Sewing Room that would come on PBS on Saturdays. And oh boy, it was the best show to fall asleep to. Anything on PBS I found was so wonderful to fall asleep to. But I loved watching her. And believe it or not, I learned a lot from her, even though I slept through a lot of it too. It wasn't because she was boring at all. It was because her voice was so great. Love that look. Isn't that a great little outfit? And look at the houndstooth there. Houndstooth is so popular again. And there's another picture of the lady before in the brown. She's now wearing white. Look at how nice those lines are of that outfit with the long dress and those red shoes. Isn't that darling? I just love that. The Carrie Promise. And this is moisturizer. And I remember the commercials, they used to come on and say, Carrie is so very. There's some Coty perfume and Coty lipstick. They make perfume and they also make powder too. I believe Coty made a musk perfume, if I'm not mistaken. I wonder if I mailed this in, if they would send me a subscription to Colonial Homes for $15.94. I should try it, shouldn't I? This is a section that was very inspirational to me when I was young because it talked about calling cards. And so I could not wait to get married because I wanted to write MRS before my name. And so I could not wait to have calling cards with my married name on them. And, you know, calling cards, if you know anything about them, they're from the Victorian era. And so what you would do when you went visiting, you would bring along your calling cards. And if someone wasn't home, you would leave a calling card with someone at the house or on the front table just to let the lady of the house know that you were there. And they used to call it calling, visiting, they call it calling. And so that's where that came into fashion. But they used the designs for calling cards for business cards. And so I have many business cards that look like this too, with my business name on it and the address too and the pertinent information. Says that, let's see, Bond Point shirt and trousers, Eagle's Eye hat. Trying to see if I know any of these names. Brooks Brothers. A lot of times they would advertise for clothing, but they would do it in such a beautiful way that you felt like, oh my, I have to have some of these things. And the photography was always so beautiful too. There was a Japanese man who did a lot of photography for, you know, I say it was a man. It may have been a woman. I don't know now. I need to research that. I think it was a man. He did a lot of photography for Victoria magazine. And that's how I actually discovered the artist Tasha Tudor. She used to be an illustrator for children's books, and she wrote books too. Love, love, love her lifestyle and her story and her illustrations and her books. But and I had many of them as a child. She illustrated The Secret Garden, the copy of The Secret Garden that I had as a child, but I didn't put two and two together that the Tasha Tudor that I was introduced to in this magazine was also the same illustrator who illustrated that beloved children's book. But look her up if you're unfamiliar with her. She is really an interesting person. Crabtree and Evelyn cookbook. I have a story about Crabtree and Evelyn. I've got a story about everything. Do you remember where you were the first time you heard certain songs? Well, I don't know if there's a word for it, but I do. I have so many memories, and my daughter and I talk about it frequently. The first place I was when I heard certain songs. So I was in a Crabtree and Evelyn store in Westtown Mall in Knoxville, Tennessee, the first time I heard Sarah McLachlan. And I was they used to have scented goods, and so I was buying scented drawer papers, and they're just lovely papers that look like wallpaper, but they have fragrance on them, and then you can put them in your drawers and make your lingerie smell pretty. Well, I was buying some scented drawer papers, and that's funny, scented drawer papers. Drawers are also a name for underwear. Oh, well, anyway, let's move on. I heard Possession by Sarah McLachlan, and I thought, oh my goodness, that is the best sounding voice. And I asked the lady who was checking me out, the cashier, who is that you have playing on your radio? And she told me, and I immediately went to a little record store and bought a cassette of her music. It was just, goodness, what was her first cassette called? I can't remember now, but anyway, I've loved her ever since. Dove soap. My friend Lori always used Dove soap, so every time I think of her, every time I smell Dove, I think of Lori and her mama. Guess they tried to get women to buy men diamonds back in the late 80s. The man's diamond, when a woman loves a man. O world, I cannot hold thee close enough, wrote Edna St. Vincent Millay of the flaming glory of an autumn day. Fall is a time that stirs our souls. October, a month of spectacle and surprise. In this issue, the acceleration of the season and a tapestry of riches to nourish our spirits. Isn't that nice? That's just something I loved so much about this magazine. Their words had a way of weaving richness into your life, just by the very idea of looking at the images that they had and reading these words. You always came away from Victoria magazine feeling heightened, with a heightened sense of well-being. That's why I started collecting these, the older ones especially, because they were so full of that, and you did come away feeling so nice. If I could gently recommend something, I would encourage you to try to pick up some old magazines like this and cut your phone and your TV off for an afternoon. Set yourself up a little tea service, make yourself a nice pot of tea, and find a comfortable place to sit just for an hour or so. Again, turn off that phone, put it far away, turn off your notifications. If you have an Apple Watch, take it off too. Take a little time traveling trip back to 1989 or whatever year your magazine's from and look through it. I guarantee your blood pressure will lower, your breathing and your heart rate will lower, your stress levels will be gone. It is so magical and such a beautiful way to calm down and relax. Especially if you lived back then and you can reminisce. Oh, wow. Look at that chintz. Isn't that something? Very, very feminine. New fabrics with old-fashioned roots. Now, listen to this. How often we long for the quiet, comfortable home stored in our collective memory. Old photographs and vintage films like The Best Years of Our Lives recall the magic of Sunday mornings in the living room, newspapers spread about. This parlor invites you to such hours. Its rose-colored covered upholstery, Stafford document, first appeared in the 1940s under the F.S. Schumacher Company's New Waverly label. Patterns like this are being revived to celebrate Schumacher's centennial, and it is this resurgence that has inspired designer Kathleen Stevens to create this interior of warm resonance for Victoria. And I do remember Sunday mornings with newspapers spread about on the living room floor. That's a good memory, a childhood memory. The Best Years of Our Lives. I don't know that film. Do any of you? I'm going to have to look that up. See how dreamy this looks? I hope that that image conveys that dreamy filter that the photographer has. I think they use the same photographer throughout because all of the photographs have that dreamy look about them. They all look like a cozy room where, from a memory almost is the best way I can describe it. There's a movie called Practical Magic. It has Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock, among others. And I can't remember. I think it may have come out about this time of year. This year, maybe in 89, 90. I can't remember. A lot of these homes remind me of the home in that movie, Practical Magic. And this is true. There is something noble in a classic design. For instance, this shaker-inspired cabinet here. If you had that in your home now, still, it's a classic design, so it would still look beautiful. It's a timeless piece. Oh, wow. That is definitely Waverly. When I look at that, I can tell that that is a Waverly fabric. Isn't that beautiful? It's over the top, but it is lovely. This right here, isn't that just that sun-drenched room? And look at that quilt. That's called Grandmother's Flower Garden, that pattern. I've made a quilt with that pattern. It takes a very long time to finish. And so this is a view, this bedroom, there's a view right there to it. So this must be a sitting area for that bedroom. Wouldn't you like to have that in your home? I love how that looks. Or even if it was just a small space and it wasn't just a master suite, that would just make a beautiful, quaint, cozy home to have a setup like that. Nooks and crannies at the very top of old houses were private places, territory often claimed by reclusive souls for special pursuits and guarded with personal fervor. This cheerful treetop studio is no exception. Marked by sunlight and sunny patterns, it gives sanctuary to today's writer, artisan, avid reader, or needleworker, and perhaps to a weekend guest. What charmed hours can be spent here in the company of one's own thoughts and dreams? Isn't that description just, I just want to eat it up. It's lovely, lovely writings. And this is the cover. This is the cover image. One thing Victoria used to do too is they would feature different businesses, women-owned businesses. So this Frames of Yesteryear is a business owned by a lady. It's called Yesteryear Limited, and it was in Los Angeles on Melrose Avenue. And I wonder if she is still there. We'll have to look her up. But look at that silk shirt she's wearing, and you can tell that thing's got shoulder pads in it. Check her out. Here's some of the pictures that she's framed. And look here. Here is an early version of a flat lay. You know, when you're doing Instagram photos, you always want to have a beautiful image and a flat lay. So I am a watercolor artist, so I saw the watercolor paints and the brushes right off in the paint tube right here. I love that. I love that. Great example. And this says all above Paris. I'm not going to turn it because I'll knock things off, but it's the Eiffel Tower. Look at that collar. Those collars were very popular back then. I wonder if those will ever come back into style. And now I do know this. My daughter was telling me that tights are in, colored tights. And I have noticed too that large clothing has come back. And when I say clothing, large clothing, I mean clothing that fits. You know, so for goodness, the last 25 years, super tight skin clothing has been very popular. And the styles, you know, come and go. But I prefer, now don't get me wrong, I wore that tight stuff when I was young. You can turn a lot of heads when you're wearing fitted dresses, but I prefer things like this that have beautiful lines, and they really showcase the fabrics and the cut of the clothing. And so I have seen things similar to this already at Dillard's and Belk and some of the other department stores. So I'm glad to see it coming back. And this top, look at that. It was probably a dress. She's just holding a hat in front of it. But that giant collar and those sleeves, so pretty. If you're lucky enough to have lived in Paris as a young man, then wherever you go for the rest of your life, it stays with you. For Paris is a movable feast. Ernest Hemingway. A grand passion for travel. These are perfume bottles. And again, this imagery, it always has that gentle sunlight and that light, just a very, very light filter that almost looks like you're looking through a gossamer piece of fabric, maybe just a little piece of chiffon, because it always has a dream feel to it. And here are some little pieces that numerous authors have written just to contribute. And this is about travel, about their own personal travels. And here's another beautiful example of a flat lay of different places and different souvenirs that someone picked up along the way in a Victorian time. That's why I have my little Victorian-looking Halloween lady here, since we are honoring Victoria magazine. Nature always wears the color of the spirit. A walk in the woods, a leaf, a sunbeam, a landscape, mused Ralph Waldo Emerson in his 1836 treatise Nature. What is common to them all, that perfectness and harmony is beauty. Inspired as Emerson surely was by nature's colors and spirit, are treasures to fill our home with the splendors of an October wood, memorable qualities of crisp autumn days. Crisp autumn days. And there's our tapestries again that we saw earlier. Listen to this. Softly, very softly, the echo of the various voices of birds penetrates into my ear. Don't you just love that? Looks like that was taken early in the morning before the fog burned off. All the dew is still sticking to the grasses and the fence posts. The fine art of scarves. I have several scarves. I have an Oleg Cassini scarf that my grandmother gave to me years ago, and it has different images on it of perfumes and different jewelry and gloves and things, and I love looking at it. I usually just tie it to my purse, but a savory tradition from England, truly designed to be savored. The tempting bits that once served as a palate clearing preludes to desserts are being rediscovered as tasty companions to claret or tea. Savories can be as simple as melted cheese on hearty bread, or as elegant as these specialties gathered from vintage cookbooks. And I wonder, let's see, is that a bacon-wrapped fig? No, it is chicken livers or clams wrapped in crisp bacon. All of that just looks so tasty. Isn't that beautiful? Let's see, it says, "Oh, you can just say I've been gardening forever," laughs Georgia Vance, who grows all the flowers for her dried arrangements at Short Glade Farm. Its antebellum white pillared house is set amid 107 rolling acres in the same Virginia country, Augusta, where Georgia, her late husband, and 4 generations of her family were born. Oh, look at her. Isn't she precious? So she grows all of these flowers that she makes in her arrangements, uses in her arrangements. She says, "I'm partial to peonies, delphiniums, and roses." Now, potpourri, dried potpourri used to be very popular too back in the 80s. And I've seen some of it. I've seen the potpourri that has larger pieces of manufactured things. The potpourri that I used to see would be just more natural items, and I've made it before. I love it. I use a lot of my roses and things that I grow too. I remember, and I think she's drying these in silica gel. I've always wanted to dry my flowers whole in silica gel, but I've never done it. I think I'm inspired to do it now. Look at that. Picnic for friends. If you cooked me up a angel food cake that looked like that, I'd be your friend for life. The bouquet of herb flowers. Look at that. Wow. Says most people don't realize that herb flowers have the same wonderful flavors as the leaves. Just beautiful. Now, this is a little recipe section. And look at that, Stilton pear and watercress savory. Oh my goodness. I think I'm going to have to make that tonight. Welsh rabbit. I thought it was called rarebit. Well, Welsh rarebit. Maybe I'm wrong. Somebody correct me. I know that I've got some folks from England who watch. So if you know the correct, what's correct? Is it Welsh rabbit or Welsh rarebit? I need to make this. It calls for butter, sharp cheese, cornstarch, beer, mustard, Worcestershire sauce, anchovy paste, whole wheat bread. So it looks like you make up a gravy and then you cut your toast slices and then pour that gravy over it. Here's some more recipes. Okay, this makes me so happy that this is in here because in one of my videos, I talked to y'all about, I can't remember which one, but it doesn't matter. I learned years ago about using scented geranium leaves to make angel food or pound cakes because you can take the leaves and put it in the bottom of your baking pan, pour your batter on top of that, and then bake your cake with those leaves, and then your cake will be permeated with that wonderful flavor of the scented geranium. Excuse me. So in this case, they're using lemon rose scented geranium leaves in the recipe. I'm going to have to do that again. I did that years ago. I used to have a place that I would go to in Knoxville to buy scented geraniums, and I haven't been there in years, but they had so many different fragrances, and I think they've fallen out of favor, out of popularity. Citronella scented geranium, but that keeps mosquitoes away, and you don't want to eat a citronella cake. That's not going to taste all that good. When I was in California the last time, I went to a little garden that had, oh my goodness, probably 15 different varieties of scented geraniums. And I kept thinking about those cakes that I read about long ago and made long ago. So this has inspired me to do it again. If I make it, I'll make a video for you. And here's an advertisement for the Franklin Heirloom dolls, the Christmas seal doll. Dolls used to be very, very popular. My grandmother had a lot of them. And we all got one for Christmas multiple years. When I was a kid, I always thought that the people who drink General Foods International coffees were rich. I don't know why. We just didn't have them in our house. And the people that they showed in the commercials seemed to be so fancy and wealthy drinking these. And I thought, someday when I get older and I have enough money, I'm going to buy me some of that. And I'm going to drink it and I'm going to be rich. It's funny the things you think about as a kid. Writings, remembrances, manners, and customs, a son's caring chronicle. I've often thought everyone should be so lucky as to have a chance to do something like this, says Jonathan Yardley, below of his opportunity to write Our Kind of People, a portrait of his parents, people of simple means and quiet dreams. So it appears that he's taken a lot of their mementos and turned it into a little family legacy book. I love that he did that. It's a tribute to his parents. This is a great story. We're 45 minutes into this, though, so maybe I'll save this story for another time. It's a pretty ring and some matching earrings. And then this is a helpful information sheet that will tell you, it's a resource page that will tell you where you can purchase the items that are listed for sale throughout the magazine. And this is an advertisement for, this says Journey into Country with America's Premier Country Book Club. And it's introducing Country Homes and Gardens Book Club. I'm trying to see if I have any of these, because I have a lot of these types of books. I don't see anything. Oh my goodness. They've got Jane Watson Hopping's book, The Pioneer Lady's Country Kitchen. I have that one. I will do a video someday on my Jane Watson Hopping's books. I have this basket book. I have this herbs book, Growing and Using Herbs Successfully. How about that? All mine came from discarded libraries, book sales, or there was a little bookstore in Pigeon Forge that I used to buy my book sets, so I didn't get them from that club. Here's a section on antiques. Arranged for personal pleasure. What one chooses to put upon a shelf is akin to a private form, a telling statement of tastes and pleasures. Some displays may be for your eyes only. A closet full of pristine linens, tied in tidy stacks with weighted rosettes attached to satin ribbons. Other arrangements may draw visitors' eyes to special collectibles such as the cornucopia vases above or the beautifully lettered jars and crocks, some of which once held foodstuff. Foodstuffs, that's plural. Oh, look at this. This is an advertisement for the American Girls collection. They used to be sold through a company called the Pleasant Company. So you can send off for a catalog to Middleton, Wisconsin and get a catalog of the American Girls. And here's a Lenox figurine of Juliet. Lenox makes beautiful fine china. And I don't know if any of you young ladies who are just now getting married still register for fine china, but we used to do that. Okay, check this out. This is gross to think about now. I want y'all to look at this bathroom. It has carpet in it. Bathrooms used to have carpet. Can you believe that? That's so gross to think about. They even had them up around toilets. It's just gross to think about. I don't know what in the world somebody was thinking, putting carpet around a toilet in a bathroom. But anyway, that's not what I'm wanted to draw your attention to. I wanted to draw your attention to these bows, these ruffled curtains and valances. Isn't that a shocking amount of ruffles? But they were popular because there were retail locations in Charlotte, Raleigh, Myrtle Beach, Cincinnati, Newport News, Richmond, Atlanta, and Goldsboro, and Wilmington. So she must have been a North Carolina-based company, I'd say. And that would be easy because, again, North Carolina had a lot of textile mills here for a long, long time. But, oh, here's another book that I have, A Lap Quilting by Georgia Bonesteel. I've got that one too. I've got several of Georgia Bonesteel's books. I actually met her one time. She also had a TV show on PBS, and she always reminded me of my mother and my aunts when I was growing up. And I rediscovered her back, goodness, 15 years ago, little over 15 years ago. And I wrote a letter to her, and I showed her, because I started quilting about then, and I used her method, her lap quilting method. And so I showed her the pillows that I made for my children, and I sent her a picture of myself and my children holding them. Well, she called me. She found my phone number and called me to thank me. And I wasn't home, and I felt so bad that I didn't get to answer her. But anyway, I was so delighted that she actually gave me a call. So I found out she's from, I believe it's called Landrum, South Carolina. Maybe it's North Carolina. I'm not sure now. But anyway, she's from not far from here. And so I found out that she was going to be doing a seminar at a library. So I took my daughter and went, and I introduced myself to her. And I took a picture of us together, too. She's quite a lady. And we've got some Martha Stewart. Oh, Decorating Rich. I have that one, too. Gifts from a Country Kitchen. I have that. And these are home style books. These are also Book of the Month Club books. Oh. Okay, these people are still around. Long before Amazon.com, there was Amazon Dry Goods. It says Amazon Vinegar and Pickling Works Dry Goods. Everything for true Victorian living for you, your family, and guests, your home and garden. 80-page catalog with 45 headings, including shoes, corsets, hats, fans, toiletries, books, toys, and much more. So they have a website, and I sent off for their catalog a long, long time ago. They were very expensive, so I never did buy anything from them, but they are still around. But I don't think that they have quite the amount of goods that they used to. But yeah, check them out if you like Victorian items. I always loved looking back here because you could send off and get catalogs, and you could get some really neat items for your home. Look at that Nostalgia Print Company. You see the angel, the guardian angel walking the children across a bridge. My great-grandmother had a giant picture of this in her home. It hung over her bed. Here's some more of those ruffly curtains. Those were very popular. Priscilla. I don't know if any of y'all know that style where the curtains are pulled back like that and hang down. That's called Priscilla curtains. My mother always had Priscilla curtains in her home. I'm trying to see if there's anything else in here that's familiar to me that I know is still in business, but I'm not seeing anything right off. You could, this is just like a classified ad. You could pay, if you had a business, to put your company in the back of the Victoria magazine. so that people like me could find you and place an order. And it worked because, again, that's how I found not the Amazon dry goods. That is how I found them, but Victorian papers, and I ordered from them for years. I'll have to look around and see if I can find an old Victorian papers catalog to show you. Replacements Limited, that's still around because that is in Greensboro. You can go up there and get pieces of silverware or china that you may have broken and it's out of print. Country Curtains, I believe they're still around too because I have bought lace from them. I have lace curtains in my living room. Victoria Home Plans. You've got the Brittany and the Derbyshire. I like that Derbyshire. I like a big old front porch like that. We have a big old porch on our house. And we built it 2 foot wider than the plans on purpose because we wanted all that space. And we use it all the time. There's a Gibson Girl figurine by the Hamilton Collection. And here's a nice little story. They would always put a nice story in the back of the magazines, and this one's called Growing Up with My Mother's Sisters. And this is by Margaret Atwood. She's a novelist. And last of all, we have an advertisement for Oyster appliances, food processors and blenders, everything you need. If this were a car, you'd be able to drive it, fly it, and land it on water. I'd say that's about right because these things were built to last a lifetime. Grand Marnier. It's a pretty illustration. Well, friends, thank you so much for spending this past hour with me. If you're still awake, would you give this video a thumbs up, please? And leave a comment below and let me know if you ever took Victoria magazine or if you saw anything in here that struck your fancy and or inspired by any of the clothing styles or the decorating styles that you would like to emulate in your own home. Y'all take good care, my friends, and I'll see you on the next video.